drove to Sturgis with my brother Nick. I bought a Harley, had about 32,000 hours worth of stuff done to the bike, and we drove to Sturgis. And then my wife at the time was in a conference somewhere in Colorado. So this friend of mine, Dan Messick, he says, "Oh, fly into Durango and drive through the nicest section of Colorado to where Anna's going." So I created my Harley, $450, $500, and they shipped it back to Chicago. They did an amazing job shipping it. Ship the bike back, fly to meet Ann. We get in an argument in the airport because she's nuts. And I'm actually like, I'm not even going to put up with it. I'm just going to leave her there. I'm not arguing with you. I'm going to just get back in a plane, stop my motorcycle, maybe drive myself, but I'm not going to put this. We make amends. And then we rent I'm like, let's rent the biggest vehicle they got. We're going through the mountains. I'm not taking any chances. So we rent a Ford Expedition, and we're driving. We're way out. We're in a big open plain, 5 miles long and 5 miles wide. And you can see the mountains. We're coming up to the mountains maybe 1,000 yards from the mountains, a couple miles. And you can see a truck coming down. The truck is coming down the mountain, and it looks like a old 40s semi flatbed steel truck that was dragging stuff from the mill, steel on it, fucked up, like right out of a Stephen King movie. This thing's coming around the mountain, and a little car, like the tiniest car, a Vega or something, is coming up, and the back of the trailer the trailer slips or slides or something, and the trailer starts going ka-chink, 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 and then it's dragging the car. This thing's got its brakes on, it's sliding down the mountain, it's got the car underneath it. So, and then, we're coming up, and now there's this horrific accident that we're watching as it happens. And all the people were driving up, and there's 30, 40 cars stopped, and everybody's standing by the side of the road. They're just watching, and the whole top of the car is off. The top of the car is off, and I pull the car over in the dirt and run out and run to the car, and the whole top of the car is off, and I run over to the driver door, and the guy is just sitting there. The guy's just, he's sitting like this. His hands are like, his body's all tense, and blood everywhere. The car is on fire. The car is smoldering. There's little flames coming out of the back of the car. And the guy's head's off. His head's off. There's not even blood. Not a lot of blood. It was the first thing I noticed is there was not a lot of blood in his head. You couldn't have wrote this in a Stephen King movie. His head is on the dashboard facing his body. And his head, and the hair is all like Medusa. And this is, these things, you see them happen in slow motion. They turn, and the woman she's sitting there like this, and her neck is like, and then her neck is like a little bit like that. You can tell her neck is a little. Woman in her 40s maybe. And Ann's talking to her, and she's gonna die. Oh my God. And then there's a girl screaming in the back seat. There's a girl, and I reach in the back seat and grab this girl, and she's got some weight to her, so maybe she was 13 or something, but I picked her up. It wasn't like picking up a 6-year-old. Like, I just went, it was a burden to grab her, and her leg was broken, and she was cut up, but she was like nothing that I would think is life-threatening. So I picked her up and put her in the back of my car. We called an ambulance, and a helicopter came and took her to the hospital. And then the fire truck came and put the fire out. But I thought, wow, this little girl watched this in 100th of a second time frames, in time-lapse photography, in slow motion. She watched two people that were her mother and father probably die. horrific death that you never forget in point blank range. So then we, I thought, man, I want to stop and find out how this girl is. So we drove down to I think we called. We looked for the hospital. I think we went in and they said, this happens a lot in the mountains. Decapitations and car top, what you saw. It's not it's not an event that nobody's seen before. It happens in the mountains. I was out with Jay Klarchuk one day, and Jay's a friend of mine from college. He works downtown. He owns Gibson's and the Lux Bar, and has a very successful real estate practice. And we were out to dinner someplace over on Milwaukee Avenue, just a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, no big deal, just get out of the house. And Ann was so in her mind trapped with the idea that Bob's outside and he's getting laid and he's with another woman and he don't want nothing to do with me. And she was running around in her car in her pajamas at 8 o'clock at night, going from place to place, hysterical, looking for me and calling me. She's super insecure. I never saw anybody like this. It's a psychological disorder. Her sister's anorexic. She's got no friends, no social life. We had this 3-story, 3,000 square foot townhouse, professionally decorated. We got a theater upstairs that I put in from a Vidicron theater system, 130-inch screen coming out of the ceiling. We never had anybody over. I don't think we ever had a party the whole time we lived there. She didn't want to change a picture on the wall. Everything that came with the house, that's it. Hang your own picture, forget it. She's nuts, and her brother's is a heroin addict. Her sister's anorexic, and we never looked into any of this. You got to ask why. Why does a lawyer who is in a unique position where he's like, well, actually, this is not every client. This is not every client that has an unlimited or a substantial trove of money to utilize to protect him. I have basically a limitless supply of cash here on hand to protect my client and produce the best case I've ever produced, or as good a case as I am capable of producing. So is this his best work? I say this is his best form of manipulation, and I'm not the first of his victims. So anyone that's out there and watching these many clips needs to really look at this and say, man, I need to step forward, because if I do and this person does and 20, 30, 50, 100 people come forward, guess what? This guy's out of business. His law firm is out of business. Sean Burson is out of business, and every lawyer who's jerking his client around is sitting there in his office now afraid, going, guess what? Now we got this crazy thing called the internet, and people are not going to put up with the bullshit. And I am not worried about looking stupid. My life has not been a cookie cutter. My life has not been clean and uniform, and I realize it's because of this ADD. But now you've got Ann, who has read every book on this subject. She is actually knows more about how Bob's brain works than he does. She knows how to manipulate him. She was writing my prescriptions to a point where the prescription, a friend of mine notices that I'm acting odd, and I'm on twice the medication that is the legal limit, and the first side effect is a heart attack. He never even brings it up to the judge. You could get maybe charged with murder for that. It shows her frame of mind and her train of thought. And she's a doctor. She's not stupid. My sister prescribes, starts self-medicating me. Fine. She's using her own judgment based on what she knows. Here is a doctor who knows every facet of this drug, how the brain works. She has had a limit, a substantial amount of time in front of a person that she's probably never seen anybody act the way I do consistently over a long period of time, and had all of this observation. And what you have to realize is what I see is not what you see.